Today, the Biden administration announcing it will provide a controversial new weapon to Ukraine, cluster munitions. Ukraine has been asking the U.S. for the cluster bomb since last year. President Biden today explaining why now.
The Ukrainians are running out of ammunition.
Specifically, artillery rounds. Allies struggling to keep them supplied as they fight through a tough counteroffensive.
And so we want to make sure that the Ukrainians have sufficient artillery to keep them in the fight in the context of the current counteroffensive. And because things are going a little slower than some had hoped.
When cluster munitions explode, they scatter dozens of small bombs over a large area, unleashing more widespread destruction than single rounds. Controversial because some of the small bombs may not explode. Embedding in the ground, becoming a threat to civilians, these duds can prove deadly weeks, months, or even years later.
It's a difficult decision. It's a decision we deferred. It's a decision that required a real hard look at the potential harm to civilians.
Officials saying the U.S. will only provide the explosives with a dud rate below 2.35%. More than 100 nations signed the Convention on Cluster Munitions, a treaty outlawing their use, but the U.S. did not.
I discussed this with our allies, discussed this with our friends up on the Hill, and we're in a situation where Ukraine continues to be brutally attacked across the board.
Ukraine assuring the U.S. they would minimize chances of civilian harm by not using the rounds in civilian and urban environments, recording where they use the rounds, and committing to demining areas after the war. The U.S. has roughly 10,000 cluster bombs in Europe ready to send to Ukraine in the coming days.
We will not leave Ukraine defenseless at any point in this conflict, period.
Courtney, how is this decision playing out at home?
Well, there's growing opposition tonight, Lester. Now, U.S. law requires that President Biden sign a waiver before sending these cluster munitions to another country because they have a failure rate above 1%. That waiver is frustrating some lawmakers, including in the president's own party, who just this week introduced new legislation, an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act that would ban the transfer of all cluster munitions.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.